every year, you know we give out the Kaylee Rivers Courage Award. It's a way to commemorate the life of 5-year-old Kaylee, who was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma. And while we can't imagine what her family must have endured and continues to endure having lost a child, it is our hope that through our work, the Rivers family take comfort in the knowledge that Kaylee's legacy lives on in the families we help, in the social workers who redistribute needed items for the most needy families, and for the scholarships we provide, helping to heal hearts and memorialize loved ones, and in events such as today's that allow us to give hope to families battling illness and in financial distress. The Kaylee Rivers Courage Award to date has been bestowed on 7 people to date. I won't get into who those 7 people are. For those of you who have come here, you know, you've met them, they've been here. But I will say that if you don't know, please take a minute to go to our website. You will find the Kaylee Rivers Courage Award. And if you're ever looking for inspiration or you're having a bad day, I want you to see who our Courage Award recipients have been and what they've done or what they've been through and how they overcame or dealt with what they came through. Okay. Tonight's recipient I want to tell you a little about. I'm really excited. I only really formally met this lady tonight, but I've been reading her around Smithtown column in the Smithtown News for a few years now. She has been a Smithtown resident for over 30 years. She's a wife, a mom, a grandmother. She's employed by New York Assemblyman Michael Kilpatrick, and she is a living kidney donor. In 2017, a young lady from St. James, Rachel Eisenson, was diagnosed with, well, I'll call it FD. It's called dysautonomia. Basically, she was in renal failure, and after months of exhaustive dialysis, she was in dire need of a kidney transplant. So the family mobilized and tried to spread word through social media and news outlets and to anyone who would listen to their plea for a new kidney for their 26-year-old daughter. This year's recipient happened to read about Rachel, and she was instantly taken back to the year 2010, when what was the most blessed event of her first granddaughter, her daughter actually developed toxemia and eclampsia, and her liver shut down, and her lungs filled with blood clots, and she was rushed to the OR, and doctors hoped she had suffered a stroke. Now, this young lady, I'm happy to report, did recover, but her mom, tonight's recipient, said that she would never forget that feeling of desperation as a parent. So when she read about Rachel Eisenson needing a kidney, she knew she had to do something to help. So she contacted the family, spent 2 days at New York Presbyterian undergoing tests to see if she was a match. As it turns out, she was a match. Then she had to undergo psychological testing about the risks of transplant surgery, and that even if she did undergo this surgery, there was no guarantee that Rachel's body would accept it. And in fact, it was only the 4th time in history that this procedure would be done on a patient with FB. Both the donor and the patient then had to wait 9 months more to have the surgery, as Rachel was not well enough. But in May 2016, Rachel got her kidney from a total stranger who happened to live in the same community and whose kidney was a match. Simple things we take for granted were now exciting for Rachel. Things like being able to eat whatever she wanted and hanging out with her 3 brothers. And I'm happy to say that Rachel has since completed her master's degree from Touro College. As for Rachel's donor, she writes in her column that she is extremely grateful, and I want you to listen to this, she is extremely grateful for the opportunity to donate her kidney. Yes, she calls it an opportunity. Now, just so you can understand how selfless this recipient's donation was, and these are stats that just will floor you. 100,000 people awaiting kidney transplants. Last year, just over 17,000 kidney transplants took place. Of those 17,000, 11,500 were from deceased donors, and 5,500 were from living donors. But here's where I want you to listen to this number. Of those 5,537 living donors, only 108 living donations were given to people who did not know the recipient. So think about that. 108 out of over 323 million people in the US. So on average, there's 3,000 new patients added to the kidney waiting list each month, and 13 people die each day waiting. Last year, almost 4,800 people died waiting for a kidney transplant, and another 3,600 became too sick to receive the kidney. Rachel's family couldn't be here today, but they asked me to read something for them. The Eisenson family owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to Kathleen. If we were to write a book about her, they said they would call it All In. Because from the very first day that their paths crossed, that has been her steadfast response to anyone who asked her about Rachel. Rachel's family had been told that Rachel was in kidney failure and would not survive without the transplant. Of course, Rachel's mom, dad, and 3 brothers were immediately tested, but they didn't match. However, just a few weeks later, agonizing weeks later, he writes, one of Rachel's classmates, the sport writer for the Smithtown News, wrote a heartfelt article about her plight. And within days, Kathleen Albrecht called them with the following message. Rachel is just a year younger than my youngest daughter. She lives in my community, and I can't help but think, what if this was happening to my family? I would pray that someone would be found. From that moment forward, Kathleen was, well, all in. And nothing and no one could dissuade her from saving our daughter, a complete stranger. But for Kathleen, astonishing compassion and empathy. She later shared a story regarding her eldest daughter's critical medical issues while pregnant with Kathleen's first grandchild. She ended her email with, when I read your daughter's story, it brought me back. I hope after sharing Rachel's story, it will bring peace. Sharing my story, it will bring peace to your family. That if it is meant to be by God's will, I am certainly not backing out. Now, Mr. Isaacson said, if everyone listening could just close their eyes and imagine the overwhelming relief we felt knowing that there was a guardian angel willing to put her life on hold to help our daughter. Kindness truly can lift the weight of the world off your shoulders. And so it was with Kathleen. Never once did she express anything but her absolute resolve to move forward as quickly as possible. And once Rachel was finally approved for the transplant after almost a year of dialysis, Kathleen couldn't set the surgery date soon enough. Obviously, Kathleen's generous altruism and selflessly coming forward is worthy of the highest praise imaginable. Our entire family is in her debt, not only for saving our daughter's life, but in a world that seems to be ripped apart by negativism and discord, Kathleen and people like her are truly the saving grace for humanity. I would just like to end this tribute with Rachel's own words. Kathleen, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you have done for me. You went through so much just to help me. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be right here right now to even express my gratitude. I appreciate you more than words can describe how I feel. Thank you so much. You mean the world, and I thank you each and every day. Love always, Rachel. So, while Kathy was... So while Kathy's courageous, selfless act of literally giving a part of herself to a total stranger were not enough, she writes that she wants to make it her mission to bring awareness to live kidney donations. So please join me applauding now, applaud, for the 2016 Kaylee Rivers Courage Award recipient, Kathy Albrecht.
Beautiful day for golf, wasn't it? You basically shared my story of how that started and how my husband and myself almost lost my daughter when she was delivering our first grandchild, and she developed HELLP syndrome. And in front of our eyes, our daughter went from having toxemia preeclampsia to HELLP syndrome. And it was like if you took a helium tank and pumped it into her body. She was swelling in front of us. And alarms were going off, and all of a sudden the whole room was filled with doctors and nurses, and they rushed her. They took her away, and 5 minutes later they came back and they said, my daughter was 26 and a half weeks pregnant. They came back and grabbed my son-in-law and said, listen, your wife is very sick. My daughter was very sick. She has HELLP syndrome. Her liver has shut down. Her lungs are filled with blood clots, and we're hoping that she didn't have a stroke. And my husband was standing there, and he said to the doctor, is she going to be okay? And the doctor said, I don't know. And they said, Brian, my son-in-law, had to sign papers so they could rush her into surgery to stop the bleeding. And he signed the papers, and as the doctor was leaving, my husband said, my daughter's going to live, isn't she? And the doctor turned and said, I don't know. And from that point, for 72 hours, it brought my husband, myself, and our entire family to our knees, begging for her life, begging. And thank you, God, she's fine today. It took her almost a year to recover from that. And next month will be 7 years ago that happened. Our granddaughter was also born at 2 pounds, 2 ounces. She is now a first grader. She's healthy. She's absolutely fine. And my life is wonderful. You know, my life is wonderful. I am blessed. I have a husband that loves me. I have 2 beautiful children, 2 wonderful son-in-laws that are great husbands and great fathers. I now have 4 grandchildren. I have a wonderful job working for our state assemblyman, Michael Fitzpatrick, after I had my dream job of opening a restaurant and serving the community, which I did at the Smithtown Country Kitchen for 16 years. And I have my health, most importantly. So when I read that story about Rachel in the Smithtown News, I put it down. And I thought about it, and then 4 days later, my husband and myself were watching TV, News 12. And the story came on News 12. And the story had touched my heart, definitely. She was just a year younger than my daughter. But when I saw the parents' desperation on television begging for someone to help, it brought me back to where I was, when I was on my knees in desperation begging for my daughter's life. And I said, if that was us, I'd want somebody to help. So I went, I got tested, did all the testing, and Rachel was so sick that it took 9 months before it actually happened. And the dad would always call me, and he'd say, how are you, Kathleen? And I'd say, I'm fine, Charles, don't worry about me. Get your daughter well. We'll get this done and over with. Get your daughter well. And 9 months had gone by, and they called me on the 9th of May. And they said, we were trying to reach you yesterday. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and I had left my phone in the car. And I looked at it, and I said, oh. And they said, we have a small opportunity of time, we think, to get this transplant done. How's May 12th, Thursday? And I said, May 12th. Had my mother been alive, that would have been her 80th birthday. So I thought that was a great sign. So I said, perfect. So I went in the city the next day, got tested, we're all set for surgery. I do the surgery on Thursday, and they had kept saying, are you sure you want to do this? Because if you want to give your kidney to someone, to anyone who needs a kidney, who's sick, we know that that person would get 10, 15, 20, 25 years out of it, depending on who the person was. With Rachel, because of her disease, it would only be the 4th time in the world it was ever done on a person like that. And they were unsure it would even take. So I said to the doctors, I said, the reason I'm standing here is this is a kid in my community. And I saw the parents, and I saw the parents' desperation. And if I don't do this, she's not going to make it. We have to try. So we did the surgery, and I was in recovery, and they said they would know right away if the kidney would take. But I was in recovery, and my husband was there, and my friends were there, and they were going to take me to a room. So I said to my husband, walk my girlfriends out, and I'll meet you upstairs. And the man pushing me down the hallway in the stretcher. Now, I just got out of surgery an hour ago. I'm laying there, and I hear the dad's voice. And he's talking. And I say, Charles? And out of the corner of my eye, because I haven't met the family, Out of the corner of my eye, I see a man running, and he runs towards me, and he falls almost, and he says, "Kathleen, thank you, thank you. They put your kidney in Rachel, and it started making urine, and my daughter's gonna live. Thank you." And that's how I found out that it was a success. And it was just 5 months ago that this happened. So I want to leave you with thinking that right now there are over 110,000 people in the United States waiting for a kidney transplant. 3,000 people are added each and every month to that list. In 2015, 4,761 people died waiting for a kidney, and another 3,668 people became too sick while waiting to ever receive a kidney. Okay, so 24% of New Yorkers over the age of 18 have enrolled in the New York State Donate Life Registry, which is wonderful, 24%, but the national average is 51%. So in New York State, we're behind. If you've ever thought about it and said, okay, just never simply got around to registering, you can simply go to My DMV and register to be an organ donor. What I'm trying to do is bring awareness to living donation. And right now, and it's working because 2 people I know are being tested right now to become living donors. So I'm hoping to spread the word. It's all good. It's all good. You can live perfectly fine with 1 kidney, and they assured me that they wouldn't take it if they ever thought that I would have a problem with my kidney. And if I ever do, you kind of jump to the top of the list for kidney donation. So it's all good. I thank you. I thank the foundation for everything you do and for our community. And safe home.